I think everyone can agree that studying the same thing day in and day out gets redundant and fries the brain. That's why we're here. My name's Sarah,
And I'm Annalise.
and we made this video to change the way you study to make for a productive and successful medical career. Our topic is varied practice, and we're going to utilize this evidence-based learning technique to help aid in this demanding transition.
Our objectives for the day are 1. To introduce the topic of varied practice. 2. To learn how to incorporate varied practice into everyday studying. And 3. To try examples of varied practice techniques.
So what is this thing called varied practice? Let's give an example. You listen to a lecture, make some flashcards of what you think is important, and you run through them until you can almost recite them by memory. Is this varied practice? No! This is fixed practice. Fixed practice involves the repetition of the same strategy to reinforce what you've just studied. Varied practice involves studying or reviewing a mix of subjects or topics in a given study session, using a combination of strategies to do so.
Now we are going to introduce some anatomical positions. Don't worry, this may seem like a lot, but we want to prove to you learners that varied practice is an efficient way to solidify new knowledge. Also, these are terms that you will shortly be learning, so stay tuned to get ahead of the game. Anterior or ventral, posterior and dorsal, superior or cranial, inferior or caudal, medial and lateral, proximal and distal, superficial and deep, supine and prone.
Now take a second to review the different kinds of epithelium.
The first thing a learner could do to benefit from varied practice would be to make flashcards or use an app such as Anki or Quizlet to allow for repetitive practice over many domains. The physical act of writing or typing the material and quizzing yourself on the flashcards will lay the foundation for a lasting memory of the material. We can do this for multiple subjects like anatomy and histology so that the review process can be varied in the kind of material we're seeing.
A second technique could be self-testing. As you're listening to lecture, you can probably pick out what the key concepts are. As you listen, pause and take the time to make some practice questions for yourself. At the end of the week, go back and review the questions you have made. Struggling on a particular subject? Go back and revisit the lecture or the PowerPoint. Cruising through another? Probably best not to overly study for something you already know. Some examples of practice questions you might make when studying anatomical terms could be 1. The pectoralis minor is blank to the major. 2. The diaphragm is blank to the lungs. And 3. The esophagus is blank to the aorta. Take a second and try to answer these questions. The answers are 1. Posterior, 2. Inferior, and 3. Anterior.
Histology is different in that it is very visually based, so you could try testing yourself by looking at key aspects on histology slides. For example, what are the arrows pointing to in picture 1? What about picture 2? In picture 1, it is simple cuboidal epithelium. Only one layer of cells is involved. For picture 2, it is stratified squamous epithelium, and there are multiple layers. Going over topics with your peers is a good way to assess where you are with the material. It also helps to fill in the blanks of a topic you may not understand as well. The important thing to remember when you are studying in groups is to not let the groups become too large, as that may take away from the learning experience. Also, make sure to keep the distractions and breaks to a minimum.
Time to review. So what is varied practice? A. Repetition of the same strategy to enforce what you have just studied. B. Studying or reviewing a mix of subjects or topics in a given study session using a combination of strategies to do so. C. Studying the same topic each day for 30 minutes. Or D. I don't know. The answer is B. Okay, now you're ready to take on anatomy.
Good luck!